What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol OPEN for Opendoor Technologies. On the left-hand side, we have the daily time frame, and on the right-hand side, the 30-minute intraday time frame. First things first, there is some news that was released after the bell, but regardless of what it was, we're basically looking at some sell-side activity. Of course, you know you're here for a technical analysis, not a fundamental breakdown. So for now, again, we'll assume for the sake of today's video that we will be opening on a gap down with the opening print somewhere down here around 1693 and the low of the pre-market session here around 1656. So looking at the daily now to talk about how we'll trade this, as you know, we have a framework here around the Trade Brigade to use whenever navigating gap up or gap down. So the first scenario is the gap and trap. And what that would look like is remembering that the open is here. If we do something like this, fail to take out the overnight low, trade back up through the open, you're looking for a long trade up into, fill the gap to today's low, Monday's low essentially, right? Right here at 1756. Now, I know there's a ton of lines on the chart. We'll go ahead and get rid of this one. It won't be as structurally important considering that we now have a gap overhead to potentially fill. But note, there might be a bump in the road, right, at 1733-ish. So I'm not going to leave the line on there, but I will remind you and make you aware that maybe the gap doesn't fill all the way. Maybe there's just a quick pause there. Who knows? But 1733 might want to be something you leave on the chart. I just like the clarity of knowing where the complete gap is. To the downside, the flip side of this coin, right, is the gap and go, meaning that we will definitively move lower. If we open here, consolidate in this overnight range, if you will, and break down through the overnight low, what we're looking for is a move to the next obvious area of daily support underneath. And I would argue it's very close, right? We have the 1629, which would make the risk to reward not really worth it, in my opinion, noting that that support was coming from this area in here, then flip to resistance, then support in here, then resistance right here. So a very technically nuanced area. 1629, I don't think it's going to give up without a solid fight, at least from the buyers. But if it is broken, that's where the opportunity arises, in my opinion. So not really looking for the short entry on the break of the overnight low, but rather see if we can get a bearish pattern to form, maybe a bear flag just above that 1629. And if that breaks, that's where it unlocks the door to potentially lower. I would argue that this should be adjusted to right around here, 1550. So let's go ahead and do that together, right? We'll go ahead and just move this guy right on up to the obvious area of resistance right there, just shy of 1550. So that would be a downside target if 1629 breaks and we see a massive momentum run to the downside here inside of open. So a lot is going to hinge, no pun intended, right? We're talking about Opendoor Technologies, but a lot is going to hinge upon the open here at 930. Do we get the gap and trap or the gap and go? The last thing I'll make you aware of is that if we do get the gap and trap and we move higher than the gap fill area, I would place some emphasis on 18 the whole dollar. And then after that, again, say there's some phenomenal upside momentum hitting the marketplace tomorrow, which, you know, doesn't strike me as likely given that the Qs and SPY are basically falling apart, but we have this 1866 overhead as well. So those are the levels. Those are my thoughts here on open. And again, a lot's going to depend upon that framework, which we'll use to navigate the gap at 930. So if you enjoyed the video or learned anything new, certainly let me know down below in the comments section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked in the description. And all of that being said, I wish you a green trading week.